All right, so today we have a more familiar topic. We're going to be talking on break, continue, and the loop and a half. So, firstly, let's just refresh our memory on what the continue does. It just simply means skip. So, if you look at this code we have on the screen for x in a list containing 1, 2, and 3, if x is equal to 2, continue, then you print X, what is going to happen? So the loop is going to start running. You run for one isn't equal to two, so the continue statement is ignored and X is printed out. Then you reach two and the continuous statement happens. So what is going to happen there is now going to jump, ignoring everything below it, and just jump back to the top. So two doesn't get printed. And then three is run. X is not equals to three and it's going to continue and it's going to print three. So our output is going to be one and three. It seems pretty straightforward. The second one, which is usually accompanied with the continue statement, is the break statement. So it's somewhat similar, but instead of a skip, it ends the entire loop completely. So if we use the same function we had earlier, so we have, or the same code we had earlier, so we have for x in 1, 2, 3, if x is equal to 2, break, then print x. What is going to happen? One is going to run the same way it ran, the condition isn't met, so one gets printed out. But now when 2 is run and the condition is met, instead of just jumping back to run 3 again, it's going to end the whole loop completely, so only one gets printed out. Another example is if you see this one we have on screen here for I in a list containing 0 and 1, and we have another for loop embedded within it for j in 0, 1, 2. If j is equal to 1, break, then outside we're going to now print I and j. So when we break it, the only loop that is getting broken is the loop for j in 0, 1, 2. So the output is going to give us 0, then 0 because it breaks at 1. So we run 0, then we run when 0 is equal to, when I is equal to 0, then we come to j when j is equal to 0. J isn't equal to 1, so it's going to run, which is why we get 0 and 0. Then now, while I is still 0, we're not going to do for when j is equals to 1. But now that is the condition we're trying to make, so it breaks it. So that complete loop now ends. We now go all the way back to the initial loop, that's the one that was not broken, and we have 1. So we'll go back again when I is equal to 1 and j is equals to 0. That runs successfully, so it's going to print out 1 and 0. We now come back again, j is equals to 1. That now breaks the loop, so our output is just be 0, 0, 1, 0. Then the third one I want to talk on is else. If you are familiar with conditions, you should be familiar with the else statement, but you may not want to bring that exact same logic here with you. So, what if we had a list of names and the names were like Ade, Linus, and Grace, for example, and we were looking for a name, maybe Praise, that wasn't there, and you wanted it to print not found if you didn't see it in the list. So this is a short list we're working with, so it may be harder to visualize. But just imagine you had a list of students in a class of like 100 students. You wanted to look through that list and find a name called Praise. So one way you may approach it is say for n in names, if n is equal to praise, print found, break, then you now print not found. What this is going to do is for every single name that doesn't say praise is going to print not found. Ideally, technically speaking, your code works. But if you're looking at it from logic side, imagine it printing 100 not found, not found, not found, not found. And technically, if we're still talking on logic, the name technically not found, oh, why am I saying technically so much? Not found in the statement is an invalid response because the very first thing we saw doesn't match praise doesn't mean praise is not in that list. So if it's saying not found, it's just assuming that praise does not exist in that list. So you are still not found before it's even gone to the full list to look for it. So even though the code works in technicality, it is a wrong approach to this problem. Another approach could be we'll define found as a boolean variable with it containing false. Then we'll have a loop that says for n in names, if n is equal to praise, set found equal to true, and then break. Then if not found, print not found. This also works, but you'll now find yourself having to create a whole new variable for this. So the question now is, how would you approach it? So, as you can see, this code we have on the screen, you have for n in names, if n is equals to praise, print found, then break it. So once it finds the name praise, the whole loop ends completely. Then on the same indent as your for loop, you're not going to have an else statement that just prints not found. So it's not printing on every single name. It's only going to print not found if it goes through the entire program or the entire list and finds nothing. Before we go forward, keep this at the back of your mind. If you see just like n modulo 2, you can read it as n modulo 2 is equal to 1, because some of you might get it confused like, oh, in modulo 2, are they asking me if the function is perfectly divisible? That is just basically, is it an even number or an odd number? If you see that, just know that it's looking for an odd number. Okay, so if we have for n in 1, 2, 3, and we have if n model 2 continue, and then we print n, else print finished. What do you think the output for this code is going to be? The code is on the screen. I'm going to give you a few seconds. You can pause the video and let me know what you think the output is going to be in the comment section below. So the output is going to be 2 and then finish, because it's going to check it first. Okay, it says if, well, like I said, we're looking for an odd number. So 1 is an odd number, so it's going to skip 1. Then it's going to run 2. 2 is an even number, so the program is going to run through, print out 2, and then go back to 3. 3 is an odd number, so it's going to skip that and then reach else. So when you see else, like the question is like, when does else run? Why the else run in this condition? Because technically our loop did run true, but when working with for and else, you can read else as no break, because if you're just reading it as else with the same logic you have from conditions, it may tend to be confusing. So at the back of your mind, when you see else, just think of it as no break. So unless a break command was given, the else statement is going to run. So continue doesn't have the same effect on else as break does. So if you wanted an input from a user and wanted to keep requesting said input until you get a valid input, how are you going to do that? I'm going to give you a hot second to attempt it, and then we'll run through what the proper way to do it is. You feel free to pause the video. Okay, so a probable way you may do it is you say answer is equals to input and you put your prompt in there. Then while answer is not equals to, let's say we're validating a password and the password is swordfish, we'll say while answer is not equal to swordfish, answer is equals to, you now request that input again and you just want to keep getting the input until you get the valid password. This works, but input is written twice because you test at the top before the body runs. A better approach would be to use a while loop. So you say while true, answer is equals to input, maybe password is our prompt, and we'll say if answer is equals to swordfish, break, that is to break the while loop. But if it's not, you just print wrong and try again. And since the loop is still ongoing, this process will just continue running without you having to define another answer, input, prompt variable. Then we now have the while continue relationship. So I'll put the screen on the code on the screen here. So you say if you have n is equals to 0 while n is less than 3, print n, then let's increment it so that it's just n plus 1. This moves the n forward. So if you remove it, you are going to get an endless loop, because if you are just checking for when n is less than 3, but you are stuck at, let's say, 0 or 1 continuously and it's never incrementing, n is always going to be less than 3. So this is not what you want. You don't want your program to not have something that is bringing it to halt. You don't want to just continue running like endlessly. So when you're working with the continue statement, sometimes unknown to you, the continue statement can delete this for you. I'll put a sample code on the screen here so you can see it. Let's say we had n is equals to 0 while n is less than 3. If n is equals to 1, continue. Print n, then n plus equals to 1 to increment n. Remember, if a condition is met in continue, everything below where the continue was defined is going to be skipped. I'm just going to jump back to the top of the loop. So in this case, if we get where n is equals to 1, n is not going to increment up again. So everything below that condition just will be skipped completely. So there are few ways you can fix it. So one way to fix it is move the increment above the continue. So you now have n is equals to 0, while n is less than 3, n plus equals to 1. If n is equals to 1, continue, then print n. Another approach will now be to use a for loop. So we can say for n in range 3, if n is equals to 1, continue and then print n. I hope with this quick video I've been able to brief, because I know a lot of people tend to find like loops confusing, especially when they start working with like break and continue. Why is does break do this and continue does this? I put continue and my code is still continuing. I put continue and it skip this number. I hope this video has been able to clarify that and you can now work better with your Python loops. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment whatever questions you have. Let me know in the comment section and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.